Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. This is a real treat to explore people's background and to have an audience that can enjoy it as well. It's my great pleasure to introduce Sara Palmer, and we're going to explore your background before you came here.
Okay,
Okay?
sounds good.
Let's begin with where you grew up.
So I grew up mostly in New York City.
Okay.
And spent my childhood in Brooklyn and Manhattan. And then I stayed there through college and grad school and married to Jeff Palmer. And then I was there till about 1980.
Uh-huh. That sounds interesting. So your background, meeting Jeff early in your life, I'm guessing.
Right, we met in college at NYU.
Wow.
It was my freshman year and his sophomore year.
Wow.
And we got married about a year and a half later. So I was pretty young. I was 19.
19.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many years you been married now?
We just had our 50th wedding anniversary in July.
God bless. That's wonderful. 50 years. Whew. Thank you. Yes.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Yes. Totally agree. So you mentioned college. Where did you go to come?
So I went to college at NYU,
NYU.
New York University.
Mm-hmm.
It was in part because, I enjoyed being in New York.
Yep.
And I was raised there. But also my father was a professor at NYU, a psychology professor, and they had a tuition remission agreement for professors. Their children could go there for free.
Yes.
Which was a huge advantage at that time in our family life. So that was the other reason I went there. But it was a really good experience. I think I got a really good education. I majored in psychology there, and I minored in biology, and took a lot of literature classes because I always liked literature and reading.
So you got an undergraduate degree. Did you go for graduate school?
I did. So then I went to graduate school in psychology at City University of New York. And I was there in residence for about 3 years before I went to Seattle with my husband to pursue his medical residency. And then I did my psychology internship out there.
Wow.
But so I was in the program. I was in Upper Manhattan. It was a very good program with good reputation at the time. And I would say that it was really a great experience working there in terms of learning how to work with different populations, because we were the clinic for the students, for the undergraduate students. So if somebody was having trouble, needed counseling, they would actually come to us. And occasionally a student would be mandated to come to us if they were causing trouble. So that was always fun. But anyway, it was a very diverse population. We had people of all races, from all cultures. I got to work with people from all over the place, and that was really a good foundation for everything I did later.
Now you got a PhD, didn't you?
I got a PhD, yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hard work.
Yes, it was.
So
it was a lot of hard work.
I greatly acknowledge you for that. That's a wonderful accomplishment. Now, you got your degree, your master's degree, PhD rather, and then tell me about the career. Where did you go with that?
Yeah, so as I said, we went to Seattle, and while Jeff was doing his residency in physical medicine and rehab, the first year I didn't do my internship right away. I was working on my dissertation, which was a theoretical dissertation, so I could take it with me and work on it from afar, even in the pre-email days, which that was. And then I was working, doing psychological testing part-time during that first year. Then the second year I did my internship at the Seattle VA hospital. And because of my exposure to the field of rehab medicine through Jeff, I decided to try doing a rotation on the rehab unit at the VA, which had a psychology intern slot. And I really, really fell in love with it. And I decided that's what I was going to do with my career. And so what that entailed was working with people who had physical disabilities. Usually, they were all adults, so they were usually acquired disabilities, something from an accident or a stroke or a spinal cord injury. Occasionally, there were people with chronic illnesses. And that's what I decided I wanted to work with.
And so following in your father's footsteps, essentially, and at
Well,
least
to some
degree-wise.
extent, yes,
Yeah.
to some extent. And he did more academic work. He didn't really do much patient work. And
Okay.
I mean, he did at the very beginning of his career, but not later. Yeah.
Well, that sounds
So,
really
yeah.
interesting. And
Yeah.
let's talk about children.
Okay.
I know you have children, and
I do. I have two sons, and one of them lives locally up here in New York State, and that's really why we chose to move here, as opposed to staying in Baltimore, where we were after Seattle. We didn't talk about that, but we can.
Sure.
And so he lives here and has two children. We have two grandchildren, and then our other son lives in L.A.
okay.
in California. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that sounds very. It's for me at least. When you're talking about West Coast, East Coast, it's hard to see people.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
it is.
Don't get. I mean, it's even hard for me with my sons live in Georgia, and even that's hard.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I mean, we've done a pretty good job keeping up with them and visiting back and forth.
I've got an off-the-wall question for you,
Okay.
which relates to where we are as a society. And I wondered if, I'm sure you've been thinking about it, and any suggestions on what we could do as a society to recover some of the damage, if that's
Yeah.
possible.
That's a big question.
It is.
I'm not a political scientist, but I guess, from a psychological point of view, I guess I would say that the main thing is for people to try to be, try not to lose their empathy for each other, and to be able to listen to each other's opinions without coming to blows about it.
Oh, yeah.
And be respectful and try to take in where the other person is coming from. I think if we can't do that, we're not going to get very far with changing anything.
No.
So I know that's something I've tried to make a conscious effort to do myself, is to sort of listen to people with political opinions that are different from mine and try to understand what they're thinking rather than just saying, well, you're wrong.
That's hard, very hard.
It is hard.
for
It
me.
is hard, and I can't always do it either. but I think it's kind of what we need to do.
You're asking somebody to share their deepest thoughts, and then if you don't agree with them, it's like, woo.
Right. And sometimes, there's ways to say that you don't agree without being disrespectful or
Argumentative, yeah.
personalizing it or being aggressive.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that the society is kind of lost as we've become so polarized, is everybody's very entrenched in what they think
Yeah.
and doesn't want to listen to anybody else. Yeah, I think that's the first step anyway.
I'm hoping that the next generation will see this and go a different direction than, all of the actions with a tyrant.
Yeah.
He's such a difficult man to deal with, and I'm not even sure he means well. I'm not sure. I'm hearing some. He doesn't.
Well, that's a whole other discussion for another day.
It sure is.
But one of the things I did want to make sure I mentioned, because we skipped over a whole bunch of time,
Right.
is that after we left Seattle, where we were for the internship and the residency,
Yep.
we came back to Baltimore. And, well, not back. We came to Baltimore. We'd never lived there before.
Oh.
But we ended up living there for the next 41 years before we came up here to Massachusetts. So that was really the longest place that I've lived. And the rest of my career unfolded there, as did having children and raising children and everything else that you do in kind of the middle part of your life. So when we went there, my first job was in the same department with Jeff, which was at the Johns Hopkins. At that time, it was called the Division of Rehab Medicine, and then later became the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehab. And so I worked there for the first year and a half, 2 years of my career post, licensure, post PhD, and I actually was the first psychologist they'd had in the rehab division there. and sort of started a whole program of psychological evaluations and therapy for the people there, which later was, picked up by other people and developed. So that was a really exciting time for me. And then I left there when I had my first son because I couldn't really work out a reasonable arrangement for, having enough time to also be home part of the time. And I ended up going into private practice for probably the next, I don't know how many years, but during that time I did a combination of working with people who had physical disabilities, neurological disabilities, both outpatient and in some other hospital settings, private hospital settings. And then I also did kind of general psychotherapy, marital counseling and people with anxiety, depression,
Therapy.
whatever they needed during that time. And then eventually I got this crazy idea when my kids were about 12 and 15 that it was time to go back to work full time. And I went back to Hopkins, which was, by that time it was as I said, a full department. And I did a postdoc fellowship there because I knew that I'd been away from the research world for such a long time that I wouldn't be able to really go back and be effective unless I got some more training. So that was very demanding and probably bit off a little more than I really wanted to chew, but I did it. And then I stayed there for about 8 years, I guess, and did a combination, did the whole academic thing with some research and some teaching and seeing patients, and then eventually left for a bunch of different reasons. But I had started writing at that point, some books for patients and families, and a couple were co-authored with Jeff and another psychologist that we both knew. And then, so I kind of took those projects with me when I left, and even though I was sort of retired at a young age, I really wasn't completely retired because I continued to do that writing and wrote several other books by the time everything was over. And then after that, I did a lot of volunteer work for different organizations. And as some people know here, because I've done some reading of my poetry, I got into writing poetry more seriously. And got involved with volunteering for an organization that is a small nonprofit press in Baltimore that promotes women's writing. So I've done, a lot of different things.
I would say you're a Renaissance woman, right? You've done so many different things. That's really wonderful. And you guys have been together a long time.
Yes, indeed.
That's also nice to have those years to work with. Well, I'm very concerned about where we are, and I mean as a country, and how we survive, I guess is the bottom line. Maybe that sounds a little bit dramatic, but I don't have any ideas. I mean, what do we do with this guy at the helm, and 3.5 more years, no less? I mean, I don't know about how you feel, but I was hoping with your psychology background you'd have some insight, suggestion about.
Well, I mean, again, I think aside from people trying to communicate better with each other, which we need on so many levels, personal, political, and worldwide.
Right.
I think, we actually talked about this at the lecture that I was talking about earlier. What can people do and to express themselves in terms of social change? And there are some things you can certainly do, like write letters to your congressmen and senators and your local politicians, go out on protests, be part of these marches and stand-ins and that kind of stuff. Support candidates whose positions you agree with economically. I mean, there's a number of things one can do, but I think it is difficult not to feel a little bit disempowered because, we're all just one person and we feel like we can't do anything. But I think if people band together, maybe they can do a little more.
Those are very good suggestions.
Yeah, I don't know what else to.
I hope we do that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Just trying to think of anything else. I'm not. The management here doesn't want me to talk about the facility because
Okay.
that gets into opinions and so forth.
Okay.
But it's something that means a lot to me. I mean, this facility here, I think, is incredible. I don't know whether they have them anywhere else around the country, but a spot to live while you're waiting for your body to decide what it wants to do. Pretty much, that's what we're all doing here. So it's good. I'm glad you're here, both of you. Is there anything else that's on your mind that you'd like to share with the group about your background, your children, your life? Anything you haven't told?
Well, that's I'm trying to think if there's, if there's some other piece that I might talk about. Well, I mean, I think that, one thing is that, I'm continuing with some of these things that I
That's really
have
good.
started.
Yes.
So, I came to the community in large part because my husband needed to get more care.
Yep.
And I really, in terms of myself, I'm still independent. I don't need to have any kind of particular intervention
Yes.
to keep going. So I wanted to be with him, but I also want to continue the things that I've been doing, and I am. I'm still, working with this publishing publisher that I mentioned. That it's called Yellow Arrow Publishing, and they promote women writers and publish women writers and have workshops and stuff like that. So I'm still on their board. I do that by Zoom. We now have people. We started in Baltimore, but with the electronic age, we have people from all over the place on our board now. So I still do that. I still do writing. I go to, there's a poetry class in the facility here, in the independent living, and I go to that. And then I started actually my own little poetry writing group here with some other people, just kind of on an informal basis. So it's not a class, but it's a
Good
group.
for you. That's wonderful.
And so, yeah, and I try to take advantage of the things in the community here, which are many. I mean, there's so many resources for writing, for music, and so on. So it's been really fun for me to be in the Berkshires. And we had our first summer here this past summer, where we did a lot of running around to Tanglewood and other places. And I kind of felt like it was a lot of fun. It was very frenetic. There was a lot to choose from. We also had a lot of company because everybody, of course, wanted to visit in the summer.
Sure.
But yeah, that's been a real pleasure to be in this area. We knew the area before we came, because my parents actually had a house in Sandusfield for many years, and so we all used to go up there and visit a lot. And so, I knew my way around a little bit. It wasn't completely strange coming here, and it wasn't like starting in a new community from scratch. And we even were able to renew relationships with some of the people that we knew up here many years ago. So that kind of helped us get jump-started. So yeah, I think it's a great
really glad
area
you're
to be
here.
in.
And let me just open it up. Anybody have a question you'd like to ask Sarah? There's one.
I
Okay.
don't have a question, but I have to repeat what I've said many times in the last 24, 48 hours. Excuse me. I go to Tanglewood a lot, I go to South Mountain concerts. So the other day I went to South Mountain concert in the afternoon, and I went to an amazing concert in the evening with your son playing the piano, and I was like blown away. I hope you all get to hear this trio. It's just amazing. I just had to talk about it.
Thanks. Yeah, Betsy's just talking about our
but-
son who lives here
Oh, yeah.
locally as a musician.
Yes.
And he gave a concert here Sunday night. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Yeah, I've heard him. He performed at the church up here.
Yeah, he's
that's
performed
where I
at
heard him.
Trinity. Yes, and that's right. And he's actually going to be doing some more things this year. I just put up a poster downstairs with his schedule,
Oh, good. Well,
but for the next fall anyway. And hopefully he'll come back here. He actually had performed here before we moved here,
Oh.
and I think that might be how he really knew about Kimball Farms, because he's really the one who told us about it and said, you know, you should consider coming here and moving closer to us and being in this great place, as opposed to just, you know, making a lateral move in Baltimore, which we also had looked at, you know, assisted living places in Baltimore too. So there were a lot of draws to come here. Our kid, our grandkids, the Berkshires, you know,
for sure.
a lot of good things. Yeah. So it's worked out pretty
Other
well.
questions? Anybody? You want to ask anything of Sarah?
Well, we're glad you're here.
Well, thanks.
Here. I agree with that.
Addition, and we appreciate it.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. How old were you and Jeff when you married?
I was 19 and he was just barely 21. So we were babies.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And how old were you when you had your first child?
I was 10 years later, so I was 29.
Wow,
Yeah.
you had good 10 years together without children.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of work to do because we were going to grad school, going to
Yeah,
medical
sure,
school, you know, doing residency, doing internship. So we waited until we were pretty much done with all of that and had, you know, settled into the first job and had some security and some
Very
stability.
wise.
And then, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there still wasn't like a good time because, you know, I did have to interrupt my career somewhat because the way things worked out. One of the historical facts about about being as old as I am is that at the time that I had my first child, there was literally no maternity policy at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, none. So everybody was completely at the mercy of their own boss, chairman, whatever, as to what they were going to be able to do and not do. And so that was, you know, that was one of the reasons that I ended up leaving, because I couldn't work out an arrangement that was suitable. But that's changed, fortunately.
Yes,
and
I
now they
would-
have paternity leave too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
fathers can take time with their kids, which of course they didn't have in those days at all.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Other questions? Comments? Sarah? It is my great pleasure. Thank you.
Well, me too. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anything else you wanted to add to?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you've covered the basics.
Excellent. Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.